Hello, whether the PPT is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, each business unit, okay, it needs to define the specific mission within the broader company mission. So, we have seen this in the previous session. What is the mission statement? Now, here, for example, you might take an example of a television studio lighting equipment company, which might define its mission as the company aims to target major television studios and become their vendor of choice for lighting technologies that represent the most advanced and reliable studio lighting arrangements. This may be the mission statement. Now, here the company is stating that it's not going to, it does not attempt to win the businesses from small television studios. It wants to win business by being the lowest in price or venture into non-lighting products. So here, when you have the broader mission statements, one needs to move ahead with the different steps in the strategic planning to achieve this broad mission statements or stated objectives which have to be achieved in future. How the company is going to achieve these broader perspectives or objectives. Now comes the part of the SWOT analysis. As we know that SWOT analysis includes strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths or weaknesses refer to the individual firm, while the opportunities and threats have to be traced or explored by the company. Now here, if you take the external environmental analysis part, it consists of opportunity and the threat analysis. Now, each and every time the external forces are acting upon the businesses or the firms, now one has to monitor key macro environmental forces and also the micro environmental actors which affect the firm in one or the other way. Now, the business units should also have their research and development wing, where the intelligence system to track the trends, or maybe one can have a databases and the research team which keeps a track on the recent trends or developments, what all is going on in the current market scenario. Management needs to identify the associated opportunities and threats. Now, the major objective of environmental scanning is to think about the new opportunities, explore the opportunities. Now, here, when the company thinks of having the strategic move, the company always explores new moves, maybe by putting the product at the lower price or inculcating the penetration strategy, offering new quality based products to the customers, or maybe forming the strategic alliances with other companies. So here there are many options available for the companies to achieve the business missions. But out of these options, what exactly has to be chosen, it depends upon the company, and which would be the feasible options in the current trends or scenario of the organization. Now, the opportunities can be classified according to their attractiveness and their success probability. So here, when we think of exploring the opportunities, okay, if there is certain idea to explore, but it has to be successful also. Just coming up with some innovative idea and implementing it will not always work. The company's success probability, it depends on whether its business trends not only match with the requirements for operating in that particular market, but also those of its competitors. Mere competence of the organization will not constitute a competitive advantage or the edge for the company. Now, always the company should think upon the generation of value adding element to the offering given to the customers and sustain it. So whatever they are promising to the customers, the company has to see to it that the promises are kept. Now, opportunity matrix portray the options or opportunities which the company can think of exploring. So here one has to analyze the opportunities as well as threats which are there in the external environment. Now, it's a challenge. The threat is a challenge posed by an unfavorable trend or development. Now, here, if the company does not take the cognizance of these strategies, specifically threat, then there is a possibility of the sales or the profits figure coming down. Now, here, once the company thinks of identifying the major threats and opportunities facing a specific business unit, it can then think about business overall attractiveness. Now, here there are 4 results or 4 outcomes which are possible. The first is an ideal business where the marketer possesses major opportunities and low in major threats. So here, if you consider the matrix, then the ideal business would be where the marketer would explore major opportunities and they will have low threats. A speculative business is high in both major opportunities and major threats. Now, that is what is known as a speculative business. A mature business is low in major opportunities but low in also threats. And a troubled business is that where it has low opportunities and high threats. So here always, as far as the last part is considered, troubled businesses, the company should not enter into this zone or this area where the business is troubled, where there are no opportunities, but still there are always threats lingering. So this should not happen. Similarly, the company should take the internal environmental analysis also, that is strengths and weaknesses analysis. The company can think of having checklist for performing strengths weaknesses analysis also. Now, these are the internal to the company and related with the external factors of opportunities and threats. Now, every business should evaluate its internal strengths and weaknesses over the time frame, because as the environmental scenario changes, It can affect the organizations also. Now here, when the company thinks of having the internal environmental analysis, it can have the checklist for performance of the strengths or weaknesses of the company. It reviews the marketing position, it reviews the financial position, the manufacturing and organizational competencies which the company has, and rates each factor as major strength, minor strength, neutral factor, minor weakness, or major weakness. Now, when the company has such type of analysis, they easily come to know in which direction the company is heading. What exactly is the scene of the current business? Now, many of the consultants, they suggest that winning companies are those who have achieved superior uh, capabilities, not just the core competencies, but those companies which have the capabilities to sustain in the ever demanding market scenario. Now, here, if you take the example of this analysis, if we take the mark from the marketing perspective, maybe one can have the analysis on the basis of attributes like company reputation, whether the company holds any reputation, what do the customers think about the competition or about the company, the intermediaries, that is the retailers, distributors, dealers, how do they perceive the company reputation? Then the company's market share. What is the company's market share? Whether it is in the market leader position or it's a follower. So exactly what is the market share? Then the part of customer satisfaction. Whether the customers are satisfied with reference to the company and the products offered. Similarly, customer retention rate. See, in this today's competitive era, gaining the customer is very easy, but retaining the customer poses challenge or poses lot of problems. So to retain, what is the customer retention rate of the company? So this again gives a clear picture of customer loyalty of the customer towards the organization. Product quality. So here, if the companies are offering the quality based products, so it has becomes a major strength. If the quality is average, then it becomes the neutral factor in this mapping of analysis. Similarly, if the company is into the service sector, then what is the service quality of the company as perceived by the intermediaries or the customers? Now, periodically, the company should have the feedback analysis of the intermediaries as well as other stakeholders like customers or the shareholders, so that it becomes easy when they get the genuine feedback from these parties to mend the gaps by providing better services. The pricing effectiveness is one of the factors here, attributes. The distributor effectiveness, the effect of promotional policies, promotions maybe through advertisements, media, through the intermediaries, that is the channel of distribution. Sales force effectiveness. So many a times the company thinks of having the sales force. How much effective is the sales force? So easy mapping becomes possible. Similarly, if we consider the innovation, uh, the R&D part, uh, when the company comes up with the new product, whether they have the innovation part and the geographical coverage. Now, these points are with reference to marketing perspective. When the company thinks from the financial aspect, the cost or availability of capital is a very important determinant, as majority of the other marketing functions are reliable on this factor. Not only marketing but manufacturing and other things also are responsible on the availability of the capital. Next one is the cash flow. How the company generates the cash flow, whether the company is in the stars position or the question marks. uh, if the company goes for the BCG matrix analysis, where exactly the company stands as far as the position of cash flow is considered. Also, the financial stability of the company is checked and analyzed here. Now, when the company thinks of manufacturing perspective, what are the manufacturing facilities available for the organization, whether they have that as a major strength or a minor strength, the economies of scale, the capacity of working of that unit, whether they are idle or whether they are working with the full fledged capacity, whether the company has able and dedicated workforce, whether the company is able to retain the customers, or every now and then there is employee turnover, which again reduces the inefficiency of the company or the organization. Ability to produce on time, technical manufacturing skills. So here, uh, whether the company inculcates any technology in terms of manufacturing. Then comes the part of organizational visionary or capable leadership. Where does the checklist stand as far as these attributes are considered? Whether they have the dedicated employees, the entrepreneurial orientation, whether it's responsive, it's flexible. So, like this, the company has a checklist, and accordingly, they analyze the major from the rating scale of major strength to major weaknesses. Now, when the company has most of the tick marks or most of the things mapped with the major strengths, then the company is in a very good scenario or position. Well, against this, if you have more of the uh, mappings on the side of major weaknesses, then we say the company possesses the threat. And the company has to come up with the new strategies to overcome the weaknesses. So, this is about the internal analysis with reference to strengths and weaknesses. Now, here, goal formulation. In the previous session, I have discussed at length the goal formulation, where the managers they use the terms as goal to describe the objectives that are specific with reference to particular magnitude or attribute and time frame. Now, most business units they think of having the mix or integration of objectives where the profitability, the sales growth, market share improvement, risk analysis, innovativeness, and reputation of the business are all these points are included. Now, the business units usually set the objectives and then manages by objectives. Now, for this manages by objective system to work, the objectives must meet four criteria. Like the objectives must be arranged hierarchically from the most to the least important. So here, when you arrange in this fashion, it gives a clear idea to prioritize the things, whether gaining the market share is the major objective, or gaining the revenues is the major objective, or just uh, producing the quality products by satisfying the customer is a major objective. Objectives should be stated quantitatively whenever possible. So, in terms of when we say to improve the return on investment, so here better it is stated in terms of some percentage and the time frame wherein the company, whether it quantifies. Okay, it would be more appropriate if the company quantifies it and mentions it in the objective itself, so that the things become clearer to the employees, the middle level managers, and the top managers. Now, the goals, whatever the company is stating, they should be uh, realistic. It should be achievable. It should not happen that the company is not at all capable and management is formulating the objectives. So, here the management should be well versed about the ground reality, and it's the duty of middle level manager to update the top management about the ground level or the scenario of the organization. Otherwise, if there is no feedback or the bottom up approach, then it becomes difficult because the goals are formulated, but the company does not have that much competencies to map. And this happens majoritarily in the organizations. That's why the homework of the organization is very important when one thinks of having the formulation of goals. Now, the goals indicate what a business units want to achieve, and the strategy gives a clear picture or a game plan for getting those done. Every business unit must have a strategic plan to achieve those objectives. Now, Michael Porter has considered three types of generic points which uh, are from the point of view of strategic formulation, like overall cost leadership, differentiation, and the focus part. Here, the businesses works hard to achieve the lowest production and distribution cost so that it can price lower than its competitors and win the large market share. Similarly, if the company thinks of achieving superior performance with reference to its competitors, if it wants to be a leader, then it needs to think on the differentiation aspect, something unique to be offered to the customers to retain the customers or retain the market share. Now, in case of focus, the business focuses on one or more narrow market segments. So here the company thinks of having either the cost leadership or the differentiation within that specified target market. Now, many companies go for strategic alliance also. Now, here the alliance can take the form of product or service alliance. It can take a form of promotional alliance, logistic alliance, and pricing collaborations. Now, this is the new trend where the companies thinks of uh, collaborative approach. They feel that if they have the strategic partners, it's possible to expand the business easily, especially in terms of international markets. It is viewed in terms of the international markets, where entering into other nation with the help of other company becomes much more feasible or much more helpful for the organizations. In case of product or service alliances, one company licenses another to produce its product, or two companies jointly market their complementary products or a new product. Now, if you take an example of a Apple company, it joined with Digital Wax to co-design, manufacture, and co-market a new product. Similarly, if we take a promotional alliance, one company agrees to carry a promotion for another company's product or service. Now, here you can take an example of a McDonald's, which has tied up with Disney to offer Mulan fingers to people buying its burgers. Similarly, if we have the automobile industry or the automobile dealers who tie up with the banks for the sake of loans. Similarly, we do have the logistic alliances also, where one company offers logistical services for another company's offerings or products. The company also has the pricing collaborations, where one or more companies join in a special pricing collaboration. Now, this is more common for hotel and rental car companies to offer mutual price discounts. We can see in terms of tours and travel alliance also, where the transportation industry and the hotel industry, both of them, they come together to form the alliance so that the margins are passed to the customers. Now here the companies need to give creative thought when they think about entering into any of the alliances, with whom one can form the alliance or who might be the strategic partners with whom they can complement their strength and weaknesses. Now, next part is the program formulation. Once the business unit has developed its principal strategies, it must work out detailed supportive program. Maybe if they need some technological setup or coming up with the R&D department, they need to gather the technological intelligence, develop leading products, or train the technical sales force, develop ads to communicate its maybe technological leadership. So here, once the programs are tentatively formulated, the people must estimate the costs. What exactly are the costs to inculcate the program? Now the next part is the implementation, where a clear strategy and well thought supportive programs must come up carefully. Now, strategy is one of the important framework of the companies. So here, whenever the company thinks of having the program formulation, it goes for implementation. During the implementation, it comes to know about the scenario or the actual problem faced by the organization. So here, if you take an example of the MNCs like Pizza Hut or McDonald's, a multinational company which entered into Indian market. Okay, they had the program formulation, they had the strategic alliances, but when they thought of penetrating into the Indian market, as far as the implementation was considered, initially they failed because of the weak environmental analysis of Indian customers in terms of social cultural aspects, which was a boomerang for them. Though being multinational, it failed to understand or map the requirements of the Indian customers. Their cultural background specifically was not taken into consideration. The company had to go for a reverse plan. It had to change its strategy as far as the menu or the palette was considered, and again re-enter uh, by molding the menus to cater to the Indian market. They formulated a different formula, mm, and inculcated the mantra of go global, be local mantra. Okay. So unless and until you think of inculcating or including the local taste and preference of the people, you will not be successful. That is what the lesson they learned here. So, so uh, at the implementation phase, the company, no doubt, though it was multinational and it penetrated, so they thought of pulling the same menu into the Indian market with the standardization, but they understood that standardization will not work here. They will have to go for customization. Now, as it implements its strategy, the firm needs to track the results also and monitor new developments, the internal as well as the external environment. Now, some of the environments are stable. It depends upon the time frame and the external factors acting upon it. That's why the companies have to be on toes, understand what are the components which are moving ahead as far as the environmental analysis is considered. If the organization fails to respond to the changing environmental aspects, it becomes very difficult for them to sustain in the market, and over the time it may lose its market share, or it's won't be able to enjoy the market shift, a market position which it has. Now, if we think of strategic business plans, the first and foremost thing, if we go for the contents of the plan, okay, here one has the summary, the executive summary, okay, basically of having the intentions of the organization, right from the mission statement, what are the objectives, the main summary of brief plans of goals, just for the senior management to grasp the major thrust. Now, as I had given you the analysis part here, a table of contents should follow the executive summary also. It becomes very easy to visualize uh, what are the core strengths and weaknesses of the organization. Now, current marketing situation presents the relevant background data. Now, easily the company understands what are the sales figures, the cost, the profit, the competitors, and the micro environment. So when the company has the maintenance of data, it becomes very easy to have a clearer picture with reference to micro and macro environmental situation of the company. The opportunities and issue analysis considers the summarizing the current situation of the company. The product manager identifies the major opportunities, threats, weaknesses, and issues facing the product line. Similarly, the financial managers takes into consideration the opportunities from where they can think of generating the cash flow and what is the current situation. So here, the cross-sectional managers tries to analyze the opportunity and issue analysis from their independent departments. And when they come together to develop the overall plan, there is exchange of ideas in between them to have a overall picture or overall view of the organization. And this helps in framing the objectives. So once these issues all together are summarized and sorted, then the organization proceeds by framing the objectives. Now here, by taking the broader perspectives or the issue analysis from the different departments and managers, the company thinks of having a strategy formulation which takes into account all of the aspects, the feedback from different managers as to where the company stands from these different perspectives. What are the threats and what are the opportunities as far as different attributes of the company is considered? And based upon this strategy of the company, the action programs are chopped out. These plans are the broad programs which are defined to achieve the business objectives in totality. So then the strategy formulation comes into picture. Now profit and loss, projected profit and loss statements deals with the allowing managers to build a supporting budget. The budget that shows the forecasted maybe sales volume or cost involved in R&D, cost involved in innovating a new offering. So here the tentative profit and loss statements are is predicted. Now it does not happen every time that whatever the company thinks, accordingly the plans will move ahead. That's why many a times the monitoring or the control function has to come into picture. Like there may be a contingency plan to be formulated depending upon the change in the particular environmental factor, like government. If tomorrow the government takes an action, if the government comes up with some norm, the company has to adhere and change its strategy. No doubt the government also gives certain time, but the company should be prepared to think about these aspects. Now, just to brief up with the environmental issues. Okay. Now here the company thinks of the internal environment, that is what is the SWOT analysis, which takes into consideration the controllable factors within the purview of the firm, the HR, the inventory management, the materials management, the machines management, the financial budgets, policies of the organization, and the control of the organizations. These are all the internal aspects which are controlled by the firm independently. While when one thinks of having the micro environment, okay, there are the customers or the public to whom the company is answerable. Similarly, they have the society and general public, the employees, the suppliers, the intermediaries, competitors, shareholders on the government. Now, all of these are the stakeholders of the organization. The company has to think about the various stakeholders. Many a times it happens so that one stakeholder gets the edge or creates the problem. For example, if you take suppliers, if tomorrow the suppliers, they do not supply the goods, if there is a shortage of the supply, then it ultimately will affect the demand side. If the demand from the market for the offering is more, and if they are not able to supply, that is, there is a gap between the demand and the supply, then also the scene is problematic. The customers will not wait for a longer time. If the company is not able to match the supplies, it becomes difficult for the company. Similarly, tomorrow, if the intermediaries, they do not support the organization, then also there is the problem. Suppose if the intermediaries, it decides that since they are getting more margins from the competitors, they will place only the competitors' products and they have stopped purchasing from you. Again, for the company, it becomes difficult to search a new intermediary. If the competitor comes with the new product and challenges with reference to maybe quality or price, then also there is a problem where the company should take cognizance of these aspects. Shareholders are very important as they finance the companies. So even they are to be satisfied. And the government, the company should adhere to the norms of the government. So these are with reference to micro factors. Moving ahead with the macro factors are demographic factors, economic factors, natural forces, technological forces, political forces, and cultural forces. Now here, if we take the first factor, that is the worldwide demographic factor, there are certain attributes which refine or define the demographic factors. First is the worldwide population growth. Now here, the strategies, when specifically the company thinks of entering the international markets, they take into account the statistics of the different markets they are entering into. If they are entering into the Asian markets, what is the worldwide population mix? Whether there is any demand for the product or the offering. If you consider, for example, India, majority of the age groups is in between 22 to 30 age groups. Okay. Or so naturally the demand for those products or services is more where the people would be demanding according to this age mix. Well, maybe against this, if you consider any other company where the population is more, the population mix age group is more inclined towards the old age, or maybe towards adults, that is 40 plus or 50 plus. So their requirements are very much different. The company, specifically in international market scenario, takes this attributes into account or into consideration. Now, these factors already you have studied, but how it helps in strategizing the companies. Okay, how these factors affect the companies is one of the important factor when the company thinks of the different strategies. Now, we will discuss this in the next session. Today I will stop here. Okay.